Backstory. I'm 7.5 months pregnant with my first child after having 3 miscarriages in the last 4 years. My fiancé and I have kept my pregnancy a secret from both of our families until we were told by my doctor that everything looked perfect and I wasn't likely to miscarry again. When we did finally announce our big news to our families, everyone was shocked, in a good way, and very supportive. Except for my sister Kate. We found out she was also pregnant, but hadn't said anything either, so she immediately lashed out at us and my mother because we ruined her pregnancy announcement. I did apologize to her as I felt bad, but I told her that her pregnancy would still be just as special, and everyone was even more excited about 2 new babies in the family. But she wouldn't hear it. She didn't speak to me for about a month. When she did finally talk to me again, she acted as if her freakout had never happened, so I just let it slide by. She's been a bit dramatic since we were children, and it usually blows over, and she just acts like it didn't happen at all. At this point, I was at almost 5 months, and we would be finding out the gender of our baby soon. She was at 3 months, and asked what I thought I was having. I just told her I think it's a boy, but who could know? And she flipped. She called me to scream at me, saying she deserves to have a boy. I can just have a girl and deal with it. I was baffled. I didn't understand why it was such a big deal to her, but eventually calmed her down enough to get off the phone and go about my day. Once I had gotten off to work, I noticed she had messaged again. You had better wait until we find out the gender of our baby to announce yours, so you don't ruin that too. I responded, saying I didn't mind waiting to tell her side of the family. She's my half-sister. But that we planned on telling his family and my mother's side of the family when we found out. My God, I have never been called as many nasty names by anyone other than that in my life. She even turned the rest of my family, through her side, against me, saying that I was trying to ruin her entire pregnancy. So I stopped talking to them for a while. I couldn't deal with the stress, and it made me an emotional wreck because that part of my family now hated me. The only one who took my side was my stepmother, bless her. A couple more weeks passed, and it was finally time to find out what we were having. Yay! The day we had my ultrasound, we told everyone, including my stepmom, and she let it slip to my sister that I was indeed having a boy. Kate continued not to speak to me. Now, recently, she's found out she is having a baby girl, and I'm excited for her, but I won't talk to her at all now. I've had to block her on all my social media and her phone number because she was blowing up my phone with hateful messages, calling me a B and a useless C because I got her boy. And that I deserve to lose this baby too, for being a terrible person and ruining her pregnancy, and leaving voicemails and messages saying how much she hopes my baby dies. I've now accepted that I may never be able to be part of that part of my family again because of this. I think even if I wanted to do that, I could never forgive her for being so hateful. Side note. I have worked in retail and food service for 5 years and never been treated so badly. I never thought that someone in my own family could be so nasty and entitled over something I couldn't even control. Well, you could always show them the text about her being crazy about all this. It may help some of them to understand that it's not you. I did try, but only one of my younger brothers believed me. Everyone else still believes her and thinks that I'm just trying to one-up her and steal her thunder. I know it's horrible the way she is acting, and it's sad that you may never have a relationship again. But she threatened your baby's life. Like, she knows how much suffering you both have gone through to have your baby, and she literally wished that you would lose his life. I don't know about you, but even if she tries to reconcile with you after her crazy rage, I would not be able to tolerate her after threatening you and your baby's life. Not to mention, I'd be scared that she would do something to your little one. An example would be if your little one had an allergy to a certain food, peanuts. She would feed your little one a peanut product. I just wouldn't trust her ever again. I would totally show all the hurtful messages and a threatening of the baby's life to that side of the family, and if they still side with her, then they are baby case too. Good riddance to get rid of them and their toxicity. Ha! When my husband, 30 male, and I, 25 female, were dating, she seemed nice enough. He is Hispanic, I am white, and my mother is an immigrant, Germany. I thought she was very overbearing and obsessive about her son, but I was told by a lot of my friends that it's common with the culture, so I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But it got so much worse when we got engaged. When he told her we were engaged, she took us out to dinner. She was still acting all nice, but it was off. The minute my husband left the table to go to the restroom, she cracked. She asked what I wanted to do with my life. Common, right? I told her I wanted to be a dermatologist. She then said, "My son wants to be in the military, and you want to be a doctor? That will never work. I work in a hospital, and I see doctors getting divorced all the time. You're going to cheat on him, just like every military spouse does, and you're never going to see each other, and I don't want that life for my son. You'd best leave him now before you get his hopes up." I was seeding. You see, his dad was military, and she pretty much ruined his entire life, and I could see she was going to try the same with me. I'm not going to get into that though, because it's an entirely different story. To sum it up, she got him dishonorably discharged on a lie. He is in the process of getting it all reversed because one of the people involved confessed to it being a lie. I kept my mouth shut at first, but she kept going and wouldn't drop it. Eventually, I couldn't hold it anymore. I told her, just because you did all of that doesn't mean I will. She started screaming at me, and then saw my husband was coming back to the table. Then put on her nice face. He wasn't aware of what happened, and I didn't tell him for quite a while. He was leaving for basic military training in a month, and I didn't want to stress him out. Fast forward to when we got married. We didn't have a ceremony, but his mom still showed up. We already had our witnesses for signing stuff. He explicitly told her not to come, because we would have a ceremony later. She showed up anyway, with his 3 uncles and abuelita, who did not know that we didn't want any family there. We had to limit it to us and our 2 witnesses. We chose to have our closest friends to be our witnesses, his best bro and my college roommate. Judge guy said that mother-in-law and fam couldn't be in the room, and she fought him to the point he just let her and fam in. She tried to sit between husband and I, and the judge guy drew the line there and literally had to tell her to find another seat. She tried to sit between husband and I, and the judge guy drew the line there and literally had to tell her to find another seat. She eventually moved, but this did not stop her from sitting between us for every single picture my roommate took. She was a photography major and said, "It's still a wedding, you need pictures." 5 days after we got married, he went to basic military training. His mom continued to harass me. Fast forward to his graduation, and it was worse. She tried to sit with me for the spouse briefing or whatever, and a military guy had to tell her to leave. She tried to come with me to another special spouse thing, and had to be told to leave that as well. She constantly tried to tell me I didn't care throughout the ceremony, and even said she would bet money we won't last a year. This graduation happened the same week as my finals week for college. I was tired, I was stressed, and I was graduating the week after. She was making everything awful, but I put on a face for my husband, cause he was super proud of himself, and I didn't want to ruin his graduation. Fast forward to when he got sent to tech school. My parents were pushing me to move out because I was married and stuff. Reasonable. Husband secured base housing for me, and we were going through the moving shindig. He could not help because tech school. My dad helped a lot, and got everything together at his house. Husband had some stuff at his mom's house he wanted, so I scheduled with her to have my dad and I come get his stuff. All during this moving stuff, she kept asking my dad a lot of questions about me and gossiping and stuff. My dad was military, and he doesn't have a filter. He told her either get out of my way and shut up, or start packing, among other things. She did not like this. Fast forward to when she came to visit at our base after tech school. I heard her talking garbage about me to Abuelita, about how I took her son away and poisoned him, or whatever. He had started standing up to her BS because his dad told him what happened, and he got pissed. For whatever reason, grandmothers have always loved me. Abuelita slapped her, and for whatever reason, grandmothers have always loved me. Abuelita slapped her and told her to essentially get her head out of her butt. I figured maybe this would actually help her stop the nonsense. It did not. She started talking garbage about me to my husband, and started calling my workplace. I work at a college in administration. She started calling my work, saying I was violating policies and being rude and all kinds of stuff. This led to a sit-down with my boss and the big boss. I also had to have a discussion with HR. I was suspended while they did a bit of an investigation. When they decided that it couldn't have been true, they talked to me again and got my full side of the story. Luckily, they believed me, but that didn't make her stop. However, it still looked really bad because they have to make a report every single time. This could ruin my career. Fast forward to now. My husband got orders to a new base. We are going overseas. Now she's pretending to be nice, saying stuff like, "Oh, I can't wait to visit you," and all that. My husband is saying that maybe she's getting better. She's not. She gave him wrong advice on what to do, and now we're having to do a lot of stuff last minute that we should have gotten done months ago. I told him to double check with his people, but he didn't, and there's only so much I could do on my end. Luckily, we're getting it together and it's working out. If we hadn't, it would have ruined his career. I literally have no idea on how to get her to leave us alone and be normal, I guess, rather than psychotic. I eventually told him about the conversation in the restaurant, and he wasn't surprised. He asked if that was why I gave up on medical school. It wasn't. I had a lot of medical stuff come up and had a change of career choice. I couldn't have survived the stress, literally. So yeah, lots of fun. Edit to add. I blocked her on every social media platform not long after she started giving him false advice and stuff about the move. Probably should have mentioned that. And we are both planning on going to therapy for a variety of reasons, individual and couples. We're hoping that the therapy helps us better establish boundaries and stuff. Wow, lots to unpack here. That's no way to live. It sounds miserable. It's not your place to put her in line. It's your husband's place. She needs firm boundaries. You and your husband really need counseling to figure this out. If your husband doesn't want to go, you should go alone. Also, think about your future together if he decides not to go to counseling to figure this out with you. You don't want to bring children into a marriage where your mother-in-law is sabotaging your parenting or turning your kids and husband against you. You need to stop covering up for mother-in-law to your husband. You'll need to drop the rope and kick her out of your lives, really. She won't get better and never will. Time to move on with your lives. So, to give some context, my father is a gynecologist that used to work in the NHS of my country, where most people would get free healthcare, as in most countries, including Planned Parenthood consultations and methods. Whenever a doctor has to make a procedure, they have to ask the patient, or a family member, legal guardian if the patient is unconscious, for approval and a signature, after explaining the options and risks. One day, my father did this to one of his patients. She wanted to get a contraceptive patch to avoid getting pregnant. He told her that, as all methods, it wasn't perfect, but that it was one of the best, with up to a 99.7% success rate. But she needed to regularly come to get it checked so it could have the best results. If used incorrectly, it can decrease to a 91%. She agreed and signed the approval. One day, that patient came very angry at him with his lawyer. She was suing my dad because she got pregnant and wanted him to pay child support until her child turned 18. My dad was shocked, as she knew the risks, and in his 20 years of working in the NHS and privately, no one had ever had the nerve to ask for such ridiculous request. He got a lawyer, and after 2 years of legal bureaucracy and what should have been an open and closed case, because he had the approval signed by her, acknowledging she knew the risks, he won. I don't think he got paid anything, because our legal system sucks, but at least he could get this behind him. My mom often jokes about his other family, and we laugh about it, because it was something very incredible and weird. Edit. Many have mentioned how ridiculous it is that it took that long to resolve this case. This is the norm in my country. My comment on how it should have been just an open and closed case is just the general common sense. But my parents have told me many similar stories of doctors getting sued, and the process being this long, despite how straightforward they might seem at first. The courts aren't in person like I've seen it is the case in America and other places. Here, most people never see their judges. Usually the lawyers just gather documents and evidence, and submit it to the government offices, and wait for the judges to ask for more documents, or make corrections, or get signatures. And there are other tools in our law that can help victims, but usually make all the legal processes slower. He should have countered her with, well, if I'm responsible for the baby, I'm going for full custody. I have a secure home life, and I'm a doctor. You think you stand a chance? You don't even know how babies are made. Your dad should have flat out laughed at both the lady and the lawyer's faces and tell them he's not the father of her kid, since he's never slept with her, so he's not responsible for any child support, and that he won't pay a single dime for a kid that was never his to begin with, no matter what any attempt at taking him to court might say. Tell crazy lady and lawyer that he bets the court would have laughed them both out of the room once they explained how a man who's never slept with the lady is somehow responsible for paying another man's child support, just because the contraceptive she used failed on the Real Plus, unless this was before paternity tests. Until the paternity test came back proving your dad was the bio dad, no court should have been able to force him to do it. He wasn't obligated to pay squat if he didn't want, especially since the two of them weren't even married. Ha.